Thank you, everyone. Well, good morning. Can I start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we gather and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Soon we'll be joined by our new Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. Can I also acknowledge in the House, Jim Chalmers, our Federal Treasurer. Can I acknowledge the Deputy Premier, Stephen Miles, our Treasurer, Cameron Dick, Minister Grace. Can I acknowledge my Cabinet and caucus colleagues? Can you please stand up and give them a big round of applause? And also to our federal other ministers and representatives, but I'm quite sure Albo will address you personally coming up. Can I, of course, acknowledge the party president, John Badhams, to our fabulous State Secretary, Kate Flanders, Zach Beers, Assistant State Secretary, Wayne Swan, ALP National President. The mighty trade union movement. Delegates, friends, one and all, and a special mention to our life members. Let's give them a big round of applause. Well, how good is it to be here with our new Labor Prime Minister in Queensland? He'll be here shortly, but let's give him a loud round of applause so he can hear you. He's someone who gets Queensland. He understands our issues. And he knows where Yeppoon is. And he knows where the Yeppoon floodplain is as well, a project built by Labor. Instead of a tax like I used to get from a few previous Prime Ministers, I now get phone calls, I get meetings, and I get good firm handshakes. So it's great to have Albo here, both as the Prime Minister and as a friend. I'll come back later about what our new partnership means for Queensland, but I wanted to start by recognising the contribution of all branch and union delegates here today and all the work you do for workers across our great state. Our government's agenda is driven by the Labor values we all share: fairness, equality, dignity, looking after the most vulnerable in our community, making sure that no one is left behind. We have always been the party of progress on the big social, environmental and economic reforms. And one of these important reforms is our work to advance Queensland's path to treaty. In August this year, our government signed a historic statement of commitment with the Treaty Advancement Committee co-chairs. This statement secures our path to treaty. It includes enshrining in legislation 2 new structures to guide this work: a First Nations Treaty Institute and a Truth-Telling and Healing Inquiry. What we do next on the path to treaty will define our humanity, our sense of fairness and the legacy that we will leave to our children. We also recognise the work being done by the Albanese government to implement the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. Including a constitutionally enshrined voice to our national parliament. Friends, last month we launched the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan. It is the most comprehensive energy plan in the nation. It's only possible because we kept our assets in public hands. No other state on the eastern seaboard can say the same. And now we're seeing Victoria and South Australia moving back into public ownership for this very reason. So not only do we get rid of Campbell Newman, remember him, back in 2015, but we kept our public assets in public hands and set our economy up for the future. I would like to recognise the key role Peter Simpson and the ETU played in that Not for Sale campaign. And our plan that we launched means we will have 70% renewable energy by 2032. Friends, this is real action on climate change. We will build the world's largest pumped hydro, the Pioneer Burdekin. It will be larger than the Snowy Hydro, and it will be our battery of the north. Our plan creates Australia's largest energy supergrid, transporting renewable energy from the regions to power industry and households. And I'm absolutely proud to say that regional Queensland is at the very centre of this clean energy industrial revolution. Unleashing 100,000 new jobs in hydrogen, renewables, manufacturing and critical minerals. Importantly, around 95% of this $62 billion energy plan will be invested in regional Queensland. We know that the success of our plan depends on our most valuable resource, skilled Queenslanders. That's why we're investing in 2 training hubs in Townsville and Gladstone. Also critical to our plan is a $150 million jobs guarantee and energy workforce charter. Our Energy Workers Charter is world-leading and an Australian first. I was pleased to join Minister de Brenni in Rockhampton at the Stanwell Power Station that will become a new clean energy hub. I had the opportunity here to meet a father and daughter team, Anthony and Paige, working alongside each other at Stanwell. They recognised that change was coming and they wanted certainty for their future. I want to take the opportunity today to thank all of the unions who have worked with us on the Energy Workers Charter. Please give them a round of applause. Building on this, today I'm pleased to announce our plans to employ 2,300 more energy workers. Working across our 6 publicly owned energy companies, these workers will help put our energy plan into action. Apprentices, engineers and electrical designers, labourers, admin workers and much, much more. Today we are launching one of the largest recruitment campaigns to find 2,300 new workers. And friends, critical to our state's growth is making more things in Queensland and having the workers to do it. Right now, our aerospace and defence manufacturing industries are booming. And just last month, the Treasurer and I turned the sod on a new $500 million Visy recycled glass factory at Stapleton, creating more good, secure jobs in manufacturing. Friends, it was our government that brought back rail manufacturing to Maryborough. And just as we did with rail manufacturing, today I can announce that we will build more buses right here in Queensland. Not imported, made in Queensland, by Queenslanders, for Queenslanders. We will be working with manufacturers to develop a pipeline of bus manufacturing here in Queensland. Importantly, they will be the new modern electric buses that are built to keep our hard-working bus drivers safe and secure. While the LNP took our manufacturing offshore, Labor will make it here in Queensland. Friends, at our 2019 state conference, I committed that our government would rebuild QBuild, committing to employ 300 more blue-collar tradespeople. Well, I'm pleased to report back today that this commitment has been met. After the LNP decimated QBuild, Labor has rebuilt it. 300 new QBuild tradies are now on the job, including 60 apprentices. And today I can announce we're going even further with our rebuild of QBuild. We will be deploying QBuild to help ease current housing supply challenges across Queensland. We'll do this by opening a brand new dedicated factory at Eagle Farm to manufacture prefabricated homes for our hard-working frontline workers in regional and remote Queensland. Not only will this help provide quality accommodation for our frontline nurses, teachers and police, it will help ease housing pressures being felt in regional and remote Queensland and open up more housing supply stock. And I want to acknowledge here today all of the Deputy Premier's great work in housing, including with our recent Housing Summit. Thank you, Stephen. Friends, yesterday I had the pleasure to join Minister Grace to officially open the Narimba State Primary School here on the Sunshine Coast. It's one of 21 brand new schools we've opened since 2015. And heading into summer, I'm pleased to say that all state schools across Queensland will now be learning in air-conditioned comfort. Well done, Minister. Helping power this are 200,000 solar panels on the rooftops of over 900 schools. Pretty cool stuff. I stole that from Grace. Friends, this is what good Labor governments do. We invest in people, we invest in the future of our children. Now, the Queensland Health and Hospital Plan is another example. It represents the biggest investment in hospitals and new beds in Queensland's history, with $9.78 billion in additional funding. This plan includes building new hospitals in Bundaberg, Coomera, Toowoomba, major hospital expansions in Townsville, in Cairns, in Mackay, in Hervey Bay, and right across the southeast. These new projects will deliver over 2,500 additional hospital beds over the next 6 years, in addition to the 869 extra beds already being delivered through our current expansion projects. We're also continuing to deliver 7 new satellite hospitals across southeast Queensland to take pressure off our emergency departments. And friends, instead of having a federal LNP government cutting our health funding, we can now invest in better health services for Queenslanders, thanks to the Albanese Labor government. Last month's federal budget handed down a confirmed 50-50 partnership to build our new state-of-the-art $750 million Queensland Cancer Centre in Queensland. This is the first of its kind in Queensland. State and federal governments working together in the interests of Queenslanders, as it should be. Today, I also want to recognise and acknowledge the outstanding commitment and professionalism of our frontline health workers, day in, day out. Queensland's response to COVID-19 was only possible due to your efforts. And I want to recognise our frontline health workers here today. Let's give them a big round of applause. Friends, you would have heard me say before that Queensland's best days are well and truly ahead of us. Well, as we gather today with our new Labor Prime Minister, I could never be more sure of that. Earlier this year, I said a change of government would mean the country could look ahead to the future, united, with confidence and with optimism. No longer having a Prime Minister who sought to divide and turn the country against itself. With Albo as PM, already we are seeing a more modern, sophisticated, united Australia. Working with the Albanese government, our Queensland government is focused on the future. We're putting the big plans in place for the future. We've secured the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. We have the strongest economic growth in the nation. And we're a Labor government that puts people and workers first. A government that values the dignity of work. Together, the opportunities are endless. Delegates, Queensland's best days are well and truly ahead of us. Thank you. Enjoy the conference.
Okay, please put your hands together now for Jim Chalmers, Federal Labor Treasurer.
Well, delegates and friends, thank you for that characteristically kind Queensland welcome. Between the Prime Minister and I, we've been right around Australia over the course of the last week, and there's absolutely no place that we would rather finish up than here with you on the sunny coast, in the state where the Labor Party was born, in the part of Australia where Kevin and Swanee were born. Now a thriving, inviting, beautiful city built on the lands of the Cubby Cubby people. Right around Australia, we acknowledge the customs, traditions and elders of First Nations people. And we commit ourselves to the Uluru Statement and to a constitutionally enshrined voice to Parliament. And we do not turn a blind eye to the sorry business that saw young Cassius Turvey's life extinguished and his promise thieved. We know we have a long way to go in this country, and we will go further and faster if we walk together and if we capture the spirit and grace shown by his mum and by his family. To Kate and Zach and John, to Sharon and Sean and the Queensland Labor team, we appreciate all of the work that goes into gathering us here. Today I have two jobs. The first is to say thank you. Thank you to the mighty rank and file of our Labor movement in our branches and in our unions for everything that you did and everything that you do to fly the Labor flag in our suburbs and cities and towns and regions. For standing together in solidarity in the sideways pelting rain and that withering wind on election day in May. Because you knew and we knew that changing the government was our big chance to change our country and our communities for the better. So thank you. And thank you for sending to our national parliament colleagues of the calibre and character of Murray Watt and Annika Wells and Anthony Chisholm and Nita Green and Shane Newman and Graham Perrott and Mr Speaker, Milton Dick. Not a big team, but plenty effective and plenty influential. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to work together with Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk and with Treasurer Cameron Dick and with Stephen and Grace and all of our outstanding Labor government. I say to the Treasurer in particular, thank you for the opportunity to work on behalf of our community, our Queensland and our country as well. And Premier, we know what steady, authentic, people-focused leadership looks like because you have provided it here for the best part of a decade, and we admire you for that. And that brings me to my second job today, which is to invite Anthony Albanese to address our conference once again, but for the first time as Prime Minister. And come to think of it, Annastacia is on to her fourth Prime Minister now. The first three she did have to stare down and see off with our help. So she's on to her fourth Prime Minister, but at last a good one. And at last a real one. One who, as others have pointed out, knows his yeppin from his yippoon. Who knows every single inch of the Bruce like the back of his hand, and that's because he's proud of the role that he played in upgrading it time and time again. A Prime Minister who comes to Queensland because he actually likes us. He understands us. He values us. He sees our potential and he wants to work with us. Not one who drops in just long enough to bag us and then bolt, to pick a fight and then piss off like the last guy did. Or the Liberal who replaced him, a guy who spent an entire budget reply convincing us he was nothing more than Scott Morrison without the ukulele. The leader of the leftovers, Peter Dutton. Now, delegates, in uncertain times, the global economy deteriorating, a war in Europe dragging on, price pressures intensifying as a consequence, with those pressures coming at us from around the world but felt around the kitchen table. Australians need and deserve and now have an optimistic leader who wants to bring people together, who will make the right calls for the right reasons and govern for the whole country. Now that's what Anthony's all about. It's what his government, your government, is all about. And it's what our budget was all about last week. There are hard days ahead, and hard decisions will accompany them. But together, with your help, we are laying the foundations for a more responsible budget and a more resilient economy by investing in our people, giving them a hand where we can, building buffers against uncertainty and vulnerability at the same time as we work so hard to build a better future. And that's why in less than 6 months, we've already supported an increase to the minimum wage and award wages for millions of workers, started fixing aged care, introduced cheaper early childhood education and expanded paid parental leave, boosted access to TAFE and universities, secured a new national housing accord to build the affordable homes that our country desperately needs, made medicines cheaper, and we're ending the climate wars and we have begun to fix the broken bargaining system which has held wages down for too long in this country. Now, none of this would be possible without you or without the leadership that Anthony Albanese provides. And that's why it makes me so proud, as a Queensland Labor member for 25 years now, to come to a Queensland Labor conference amidst the mighty rank and file of our movement and say these words. Please welcome my friend and our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
Well, what a cracking Queensland welcome that was. Thank you. I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and I'm very proud to lead an Australian Labor government committed to the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full, including a constitutionally enshrined voice to our national parliament. Thank you so much for that lovely welcome, and thank you, Jim, for the generous introduction. I know you are a proud Queenslander, and you can be very proud of the budget that you delivered just 2 weeks ago. It was a Labor budget, through and through, responsible in tough times, with fairness at its core, but always focused on the future. It is a pleasure to be in Queensland again, and it's a special treat to be here on the Sunshine Coast. I snuck in a swim early this morning, I've got to say. It's a great part of Australia. Over the years, I've spent so much time in this great state, building infrastructure which has boosted productivity, created jobs and made roads safer. Just north of here, the Koroita upgrade, a project that was ignored by Liberal national governments for so long. I remember Warren Truss, remember him? He was the local member. He used to stand up in Parliament and say it was the worst stretch of road, the most dangerous stretch of road in Australia. If only he was in a position to do something about it. He was the Transport Minister. But I got visited by an AMBO called Wayne Sachs. I remember we met with Swanee and with Kevin, and we got it done. We got it done. Not because there were votes in it, but because it was the right thing to do, as we always have done. And that's what we did right throughout Queensland. If you go a little bit further north, unlike the current leader of the opposition, of course, I know my yeppin from my yappoon. And can I acknowledge my friend, the outstanding Premier of your great state, Annastacia Palaszczuk. Annastacia and I worked closely together as the respective infrastructure ministers for our states. Now, you would have got pretty good odds at that time to say, oh, well, I'll come back and we'll speak at a conference and you'll be the Premier and I'll be the Prime Minister. Yet here we are. And we have the same close, warm relationship that we always have had. Annastacia is a legend. 3 election victories, and a 4th, I have no doubt, on the way. And can I say this as opposition leader, and it was difficult times during the pandemic, I could always count on your wisdom and on your support. And I'm so lucky to work with you as Prime Minister, as an important voice in the National Cabinet and a powerful champion for the great state of Queensland. And as the Premier knows, because I've sat with her and I've sat with Jim and the Sports Minister here, I love Queensland and I'm on Queensland's side 365 days a year and 362 nights. You've got to give me something. There's got to be some southerners have moved up here. You know, the figures show that happens. And why wouldn't you want to live in Queensland? I also want to give a big shout out to all the rank and file members and trade unionists and true believers who are gathered here this morning. I was reminiscing with a couple of my colleagues earlier about that rally we had in Brisbane on the last Sunday of the federal campaign. I'll never forget the energy in that room, the lift that it gave to all of us in our final sprint to the line. And I want to thank all the members of the Queensland branch for the work that you did to deliver a federal Labor victory in May. Never underestimate the difference that your efforts made, not just to the success of the campaign, but importantly because for Labor it's not the campaign that is the objective, it's changing the direction of the nation. Because of what you did, because you gave your time and energy, because you made calls and knocked on doors and engaged with your fellow Queenslanders, Australia has a treasury from Logan. He kind of reminds us every now and again that he's from Logan. Murray Watt is leading our support for disaster recovery around the nation. Annika Wells is working to fix the crisis in aged care. And because she's got incredible energy, you know, managing the twins and Celeste as well, she also has the job of being the Minister for Sport in the Olympic state leading up to 2032. Getting a phone call, I'm sure, every day from the Premier about the Brisbane Olympics, and we look forward to working cooperatively, the federal government and Queensland government working to deliver the best Olympic Games ever. Now, Nita Green's out there protecting the Great Barrier Reef. And Cheers is working on two great Queensland Labor priorities, education, but also importantly, in this most regional of states, regional development. And Graham Perrott and Shane Newman are doing what they have always done, which is to deliver and be such strong advocates for their local communities, knocking down the door of the Treasurer, the Finance Minister and my own office, supporting the great communities that they represent. And as Speaker, Milton Dick is making Parliament a place where things get done again. Pretty talented family, that one. We are lucky to have all these talented and passionate Queensland ministers and members and senators in our federal caucus. I've just got one request of you. We've got the quality, now we need the quantity. We want more. No pressure. Now, we know the work of building a better future takes more than one budget, indeed more than one term of government. And we know there are more communities in Queensland who need and deserve Labor representation in the federal parliament. And that's where I look to Annastacia's example and the long-term success of her government. It provides a template for federal Labor to go forward. The lesson and inspiration I take from the Queensland branch is this. Put simply, Queenslanders pay on results. Queenslanders respect straight talk. Queenslanders back leaders who show up, who step up and who take responsibility. And Queenslanders back governments who match their words with actions. So the important task for federal Labor here in Queensland is the same fundamental responsibility that my colleagues and I take on everywhere, every day. Clean up the mess and chaos of a wasted decade, restore trust in government by treating people with respect and being upfront about the challenges that our nation is facing, and deliver the plan for a better future that the Australian people voted for on the 21st of May. And that's why it's so important that we can tell families in Corinda and Ipswich and Innisfail and Emerald they will save thousands of dollars every year under the cheaper childcare plan that we are delivering. Good for their family budget, good for our national economy, good for our children's early education, and importantly, good for women's economic equality. Our government, the first government in Australian history where the majority of the caucus are women, 54 out of 103. While the other side have actually gone backwards. They've actually gone in reverse. We recognise that the full, equal and respectful participation of women in the economy is Australia's greatest untapped resource. That's why we're delivering cheaper childcare, because it's economic reform. It's why we're implementing all 55 recommendations of the Respect at Work report. It's why we're making paid family and domestic violence leave part of the national employment standards enshrined in law. And it's why the budget handed down by Jim Chalmers will expand paid parental leave to 26 weeks, a full 6 months. This is giving parents more time, more support and more choice, so mums and dads can share the caring responsibilities more equally. Delegates, up and down the Bruce Highway from the southeast corner to Cairns, I've had the privilege of meeting with members of our amazing healthcare workforce. Heroes of the pandemic, heroes every day of the year. We know more needs to be done to take pressure off our health system, and we believe that every Australian, wherever they live, has the right to world-class, affordable healthcare. And that's why our first budget makes new investments in primary care and hospitals across Queensland and provides $26 million to support mental health and suicide prevention. We're restoring rural and regional psychiatric health telehealth services too, so people don't have to drive for hours to talk to someone who can help. We're funding new urgent care clinics, including 9 here in Queensland, taking pressure off emergency departments and ensuring more Queenslanders can see a bulk billing doctor. And we're working together with the Palaszczuk government to build a new nation-leading comprehensive cancer centre there in Brisbane. And speaking of the Bruce, I'm really pleased to say that our budget is funding a major upgrade in Brisbane's outer northern suburbs, as well as Stage 3 of the Gold Coast Light Rail and Stage 1 of the Coomera connector to Nerang. We're backing bang for buck projects that are ready to go, not LNP pork barrel fantasies like commuter car parks at train stations that don't exist. Friends, one of my favourite days of the election campaign was when I was asked if I supported a pay rise of $1 an hour for workers on the minimum wage. I responded clearly with one word: absolutely. And one of my proudest days in government so far, we're not 6 months in yet, was when we secured a real increase in the minimum wage for the heroes of the front line. Remember what the Liberals had to say about that at the time. They said it was loose. They didn't quite understand the meaning of that, but anyway, separate issue. They said it was irresponsible. I'll tell you what's irresponsible. And I'll tell you what is immoral. A decade of forcing down wages for working people. A decade of low wages being used as a deliberate design feature of their economic strategy. Our government is getting wages moving again. And yesterday, the Fair Work Commission granted aged care workers a 15% pay rise. I'm waiting to be asked whether I welcome it or not, and again I'll respond with one word: absolutely. These workers are the heroes of the pandemic, and this is the difference that a Labor government can make, that you have made by working for a Labor government. You can all be proud of that, because every bit of change that happens is a part of your legacy as Labor members, is the fruit, the product of your work and your energy and your phone calls and your door knocking and your handing out how to votes. Real wage justice for workers, mainly women, working hard, caring for older Australians. Our government is restoring the fair go at work. Just like your Queensland government, we are going to make wage theft a crime. And friends, 2 weeks ago, we brought legislation to the Parliament to protect workers from sexual harassment, to make gender equity an objective of the Fair Work Act, to stop companies advertising jobs for rates of pay below the minimum wage, and to fix the broken bargaining system so that workers in low-paid industries, nurses, carers, early childhood educators, disability care workers, can negotiate for a better deal. At our Jobs and Skills Summit, big business, small business, unions, all agreed that the current bargaining system isn't delivering productivity gains or pay rises. And it's failing women most of all, because it's the workforces with the most women who currently have the least bargaining power and the lowest pay. Our changes will mean the people who look after our loved ones when they are sick, who care for our parents when they get old, who educate our youngest Australians, who keep the promise at the heart of the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Our changes will mean these Australians can hope for more than our thanks. They can seek the better conditions and the better pay that they deserve. And the Coalition, in spite of the fact that we have such a clear mandate, that we campaigned so strongly on these issues, they've already declared before they even saw the legislation that they were against it. Why? Because in the words of the Shadow Treasurer, I kid you not, these were his words of why they were opposed to it. To quote him, "It will push wages up." His words. I reckon that's a reason to vote for it. I seriously doubt they'll even bother to read the bill at all. I bet they took one look at the title, "Secure Jobs and Better Pay," and they went, "Nah, we're against that." They went back to their work choices happy place. The fact is that whether it's stagnant wages or denial over climate change or a budget weighed down by $1 trillion of debt, the LNP have learnt absolutely nothing from their defeat. They take no responsibility for the mess that they have left behind, and they show no interest in helping to clean it up. Let us be very clear. After the wasted decade that they inflicted on Australia, never again can the LNP pretend to be the party of fiscal responsibility or good economic management. Never again can the LNP pretend they support aspiration when all they do is promote insecurity at work. And never again can the Liberals claim to be conservatives when all they do is trash our institutions and undermine our democracy. And I'm still trying to get my head around how it is that you have the great honour of being Prime Minister of the country and you think to yourself, why don't I make myself Health Minister as well? And Finance Minister and Treasurer and Industry Minister and Resources Minister. I just can't fathom it myself. And then not tell anyone. Not tell anyone. Just an extraordinary series of events. We knew they were bad. We didn't quite know how bad they were. You can trace our movement's fight for fair pay all the way back to the roots of the Tree of Knowledge, where our great party had its foundations. First branch meeting was in Balmain. But it was formed in Barcaldine. I went close there, Jim. There were some nervous looks from members of my front bench there. I didn't forget where I was. But getting wages moving again, because we proudly grew out of the trade union movement, is also fundamental to helping families with the cost of living pressures that we're confronting right now. And that's what our plan for cheaper childcare is about. So is our action on cheaper medicine, the first cut in the cost of medicines on the PBS since the Chifley government created it. So is our new National Housing Accord that Jim announced on budget night. And I'm so pleased that the Queensland government have joined with us and with the construction industry and with big institutional investors like superannuation funds to commit to building 1 million new affordable homes. Annastacia, you are once again leading the country in this policy area of dealing with housing affordability. This fund, our proposal, will work alongside our new Housing Future Fund, our Help to Buy plan and our Regional First Home Buyers Guarantee, because we believe that every Australian deserves the right to a secure roof over their head. And we understand that a home is more than just a place to sleep. It's about connection and community and quality of life. And that's why we want to put the great Australian dream in reach for the next generation without forcing people to raid their retirement savings. Of course, whenever we talk about cost of living, we recognise that power bills are front of mind for families. And a big factor in rising power prices is Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine and the pressure it's putting on global energy supply. But Australians are also paying the price for a decade of denial and delay and dysfunction in energy policy that's left us vulnerable to this international uncertainty. A wasted decade in which the LNP actively opposed adding cleaner and cheaper power into the national grid, even while traditional energy sources were going offline. 4 gigawatts of energy went out of the system while the LNP were in power, and 1 gigawatt came in. They fought for power among themselves while the capacity to generate power for Australians drained away. And now they criticise us for moving too fast to put it back in. We all know the most affordable and the most available form of new energy is renewables. And that energy will power a new generation of Australian manufacturing. So instead of us being left as the last link in the global supply chain, we make things here again. Delegates, your Queensland Labor government understands this, and what's more, you are acting on it. Annastacia, the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan that you announced last month is an act of leadership that will shape the future of this state and the nation. It is classic Queensland, going for the biggest and the best, the biggest pumped hydro scheme in the world. Massive uptake in rooftop solar and battery storage, a new supergrid connecting solar, wind, battery and hydrogen generation across the state, and bringing thousands of new jobs and billions in new investment to regional communities across this great decentralised state, putting Gladstone and Townsville and Mackay and Cairns at the forefront of this new wave of economic growth. You're doing it the Queensland way, and you're doing it the Labor way, with a job security guarantee, backing the energy workers whose efforts have powered this state's prosperity for generations. And friends, for the first time in a decade, Queenslanders have a federal government in their corner on this, a partner in the work ahead. Annastacia, we want to work with you and your government to bring the new jobs of clean energy to every corner of Queensland. And we'll take up this challenge and seize these opportunities by bringing people together, working with your government and every state and territory government, Labor or LNP. Because this isn't state of origin. It's not north against south or east coast against west coast. It's not the city against the regions. We're all Australians and we can all seize this opportunity together. Mind you, there is one exception. There's always one. The federal opposition just can't seem to get it through their heads. They want to turn their back on cheaper, cleaner energy and more jobs, and instead invest in the most expensive form of new energy, nuclear power. Now, only Peter Dutton could look at this beautiful part of the Sunshine Coast and say, what a great spot for a nuclear reactor. Maybe Bribie Island. We believe in the light on the hill. The LNP wants us to glow in the dark. Now, our government has begun the long-term work of bringing new renewable energy online, and we're looking at everything we can do to get energy prices under control for families and businesses. That's how we operate: responsible, fair, focused on delivering for people. Friends, we've come to government in challenging times, but the truth is that government always brings challenges. It asks tough questions. It demands hard decisions. Yet the great reward, the cause and the calling that brought us to the Labor movement, the reason why you all take out that Labor ticket and hold it in your wallet, is the opportunity to change people's lives for the better, to deliver the change that Australians voted for. I reflected earlier on my happy memories of that Brisbane campaign rally. Back then, in opposition, you can only talk about the things that you will do. 5 months later, I'm so pleased to stand here as the leader of a Labor government and talk about what we have done, but also what we are doing. We are delivering cheaper childcare. We're delivering cheaper medicine. We're fixing the crisis in aged care. We're putting nurses back into nursing homes. We're creating more fee-free TAFE courses. and more uni places for young people in our regions. We are rebuilding trust in politics, creating a powerful, transparent and independent National Anti-Corruption Commission. We're investing $1.2 billion to protect the environmental treasure of the Great Barrier Reef. We're rebuilding Australia's international reputation as a respected leader in our region and a trusted partner in the world. And we are answering the gracious, generous, patient call of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, advancing recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our nation's birth certificate, our constitution, giving respect to First Nations people, but giving all of us a greater sense of who we are and a greater appreciation of the privilege we have to share the wonders of this ancient continent with the world's oldest continuous culture, and sending, importantly, a message to the world about modern Australia, that we are a mature and confident nation on the road to reconciliation. Friends, my team and I are very proud of what we're delivering, and we're proud of what we have already delivered. After a wasted decade of trailing the world, we have lifted Australia's ambitions on climate change. We have abolished the discrimination of the cashless debit card. We have restored funding certainty to the ABC. We've secured a boost in the minimum wage. We've launched a Royal Commission to make sure the cruelty of robo-debt never happens again. We have brought the Annastacia family home to the embrace of Billow, to a Queensland community we've made paid family and domestic violence leave a workplace right. We have kept faith with the people of Australia. A better future is what we promised, a better future is what Australia voted for, and a better future is what we will deliver together. Thank you very much.